with another one.
Another one.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to outfits, I know this is something that comes up with the women, as well as men, but sometimes there's the thought process. I've heard more so from women about wearing the same outfit, or so. For example, we pod every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is your brain going, what did I wear last Tuesday so I don't wear the same thing? And do you go back and look, or are you more of, hey, whatever I have on, we're just moving forward?
Yeah. To me, it's normally whatever I have on. That's what I come in. Or my main thoughts, and I know this is going to be maybe TMI, is like what kind of bra do I have, right? Ready. Am I already wearing a bra? What kind of bra is it? If it's like a certain type and I can't wear a low cut because it might show, or I can't wear, whatever.
Yeah.
Big T-shirts are always a go for me.
Okay,
But,
gotcha. So you ain't stressing on I wore this color last week, or I wore this shirt last week, or I wore this one 2 weeks ago, or they've already seen me in this, nothing like that.
I think about it a little bit, but for the most part, I'm like, I don't stress too hard about it. No, not really.
Gotcha. I think about it a little bit. I think there's a few colors that I'm cool rotating between. Like if I wear it 2 weeks ago, no big deal. Or if it's, again, a white, who cares?
Mm.
I think the hat, I don't want to wear the same hat 2 weeks in a row. So I might want to rotate hats. So,
that's understandable.
Yes. Okay. Today, we're going to be tapping into some marriage advice. Looking to some experts.
Not me.
Linda and Charlie Bloom wrote this book called 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. Simple lessons to make love last. So what we did in preparation for this show is Amy went through the book titles. I went through the book titles. She picked 4. I picked 4. We're going to read out the book title. We'll get a chance to have some conversation about it. And then if beneficial, if we sense a pull to actually go and read the chapter or excerpts of the chapter, we will do that. Mm-hmm. But we did want to center today's thoughts on marriage. Do I have a marriage button?
Da-na-na-na.
That sounds like a wedding bell, a wedding song. Okay, here we go. All right, do you want me to pick yours first, or would you like to pick mine? We'll do one of yours first. All right, tell me your chapter.
I want to say it was 13. 13 was the first one I picked. So 13.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, this one says, even good marriages have recurring seasons, and there can be some hard winters.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go to the book? Do you want to have some initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts.
Go ahead.
Initial thoughts, right? I'm reading this, right? And it's like, automatically, I don't want to feel like thinking about other people's marriage, right? In my marriage, right? Like, I myself have heard people say like, oh, we've been together X amount of years. We've never fought. Everything's been perfect. Everything is perfect. We've never had a single fight, blah, 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 and stuff like that. And
people actually say that?
Yeah. Like I've seen like people on the internet say stuff like that. And then I'm like, I never want to be like, lies. I never want to be like that. But a little piece of me does feel a little bit better to know that other marriages struggle as well, So, yeah, that's when I was reading it and it said, even good marriages. So I was like, even those up there. But yeah.
Go ahead.
Even like, having the same fights or like, arguments or the same things that tend to bother me, myself, I feel like, oh, sometimes it feels like that, like a season.
Right. No, and that's real. I think one of the interesting things that happened along the way, I had a coworker who, him and his wife were like the couple known to never, ever, ever argue. Like that was even the reputation. They're like oh, they're the same people, when you're with them in public, in private, and they never, which I think on the outside looking in is like, wait, what? Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, okay, well, and then they go through a divorce, but then, and then it's like, wait, what? What? Like,
maybe they weren't the same.
well, it was interesting as an indicator of health. Sometimes I think I can look at frequency of conflict. I can look at type of conflict and go, hey, that's a problem or that's an issue, which it can be for sure. But also, even having conversation with people behind the scenes with marriages that did not work, sometimes them not having conflict was ultimately what led them to go like, oh yeah, like I'm not trying to be in this relationship. So like there was something about the conflict there's something about the absence of conflict that was actually a loss for them. Not that they wanted the conflict, but maybe it was not understanding yourself, not expressing your preferences, and not your partner not being able to meet those preferences because there's not having that actual communication about disagreeing about what's happening.
Or is that just what I say to make myself feel better?
Well,
just kidding. But I understand.
And there's I think there's another chapter title, and it says something to the effect of, it's not actually like conflict that kills marriages, but it's actually like the slow simmering resentment that grows over time. So like when you're thinking about like resentment, and I've heard that defined in different ways. Maybe we could ask ChatGPT to give us some more definitions. But if you think about how you're gauging the health of your relationship, is it the conflict or is it the resentment? Now, there can be overlap where your resentment can lead to conflict. Viviana hopping in the chat. Do you want to read that, Amy?
Yes. Viviana says, or one person having an issue and the other saying everything is fine and not addressing it.
Given the business.
Yes.
Right.
Runners.
Runners are people who just bury that, who bury that inside and are not actually doing the introspective work, whether that's journaling or conversing and figuring out what they really want, but then having the courage to be able to express that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for you, it gives you a sense of security knowing your situation. If there's more conflict in your situation right now, if there's more problems in your situation right now, you might be in a wintry season, as the author put it.
Yeah. And then it's how it said, sometimes it's harsh winters. But it's like a season of basically like the same things, not like... And then, I was looking at one of the titles and it was saying that, it's not always, like how you said, it's not always the actual conflict. Like it could be something else.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing too. Like I think if, especially internally, you're not getting to a happy place, it's really hard to move past those similar conflicts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have a source of content that you're looking for as far as Reddit goes.
Yeah.
Then is there a source of content that weighs in? And when I say that source of content, it could be family members or, some people, like how do you go about knowing what's good conflict, maybe what's bad conflict? How do you resolve conflict? Like what's providing parameters? I have my own answers to the question, but how do you figure out if, hey, this is a good appropriate conflict for us to have, or hey, this is actually just petty and immature, and then like maybe providing a context for labeling the kind of conflict you're in and navigating through it.
I think that like parameters for me as far as like whether or not the conflict is good, like I think a conflict is good if we are constructively learning things about each other. I think a conflict is bad when either one of us is having a problem and instead of like explaining and trying to walk your partner through what's going on, you both just kind of butt heads and, think like, oh, you don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand you, you don't understand me, that's it. We'll just move on from this. I don't think that that's a healthy, constructive problem, no matter what the problem is. And I think it's healthy and constructive if you can explain why, you feel the way that you feel, or what your opinion is, or what you're thinking, where that idea comes from, I think makes a conflict good. No matter what it is, it could be, any number of things. But if you feel like I guess we'd had a conversation before where it was like, oh, I didn't do this because you didn't do something else that, doesn't seem related. But, if you explain it like, oh, well, that was my, you turned off my alarm, and the alarm is the reason that I didn't get up on time to do this and then take the trash out. So I went to work without taking the trash out because you turned off my alarm. It's not directly related, but explaining that I think is constructive instead of just like getting upset and not breaking it down.
Yeah, I think I find myself asking, so I think being reductive, I think there's a part of reductive where I reduce things to, okay, she has some thoughts, she has some words, she has some actions, she has some responses, and she has some beliefs. And I have the same thing on my side. So we both have thoughts, words, actions, beliefs, and responses. And then, so am I able to see, hey, here's where we're at? And then in my head, I'm going like to the very, very end of the conversation. Hey, where's the resolution? Yep. So is she looking for an apology? Is she looking for me to commit to trying to be different, which is different than being different? Because I think sometimes we get idealistic and think, okay, well, I will absolutely be different. But the idea is, when we say the phrase all the time with, hey, I'm not perfect, we all get that and understand and agree to it. But then inside of but then we almost hold up this, oh, well, I'm going to be perfect in my marriage moving forward in this one area. Well, maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
Like the idea of, if I could press the button on myself or press the lever and go patient forever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I pull the lever. Or if I can be gentle forever, I push that button. And if there is a knob to go be humble forever, right? So those 5 qualities of kindness, compassion, humility, gentleness, and patience. If I can just be those forever, hey, I just pull the levers, push the buttons, and twist the knobs, and be dialed in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really work that way. You don't get to just be patient forever. It's probably going to be an ongoing thing. I'm going to have to take ownership, apologize, and all of that. So all of that to say is, I try to find where we're going and then provide a smoother path for us to get from where we are to where we both want to be, which is resolved. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think the training is helping her and me to both think in that way, which is, hey, like, what are you looking to, what do you want from this situation?
Yeah.
And then if she can't do it, okay, so then we're just spinning in circles. Like if we can't figure out what you want, no, you just want to vent. Okay, cool. So I won't respond. So I'll listen, I'll sympathize, I'll be curious, and I'll just listen.
Yeah.
So she was just looking for that curiosity and understanding. You want to read her next comment,
yes.
Viviana?
Viviana says, my litmus test, will the issue still matter for us 5 years from now?
Will the issue matter 5 years from now? That's a good one right there.
I always think about things so in depth sometimes, so like I feel like I overthink things, especially, I really know that I overdo it sometimes, but sometimes I'll get into it and I'll be like, oh, if you're not, especially, having a child, if I see something, even something that I'm not doing, like let's say I'm not making sure to put my clothes straight into the laundry basket. I'm thinking, oh, if I don't start doing it now, then my son's going to see I'm not doing it. Then he's going to develop bad habits. Then he's going to grow up and this is going to happen. And then he's going to be with a girlfriend. She's going to think that I'm a bad mom because I didn't teach my son how to put his, it's like, okay, really? Like, really? Is it going to matter in 5 years? I will like overthink it and I'll be like, well, if it'll affect this and it'll affect this and it'll affect this, and I'll overdo it. I think I can see myself doing that sometimes because I do know that like Jeremy tries to think about things, more like, long term sometimes. And then I'm like, no, like you have to, I told you that I've said it before that I don't like it when people call Kalel names having to do with his weight. So it's like, I say those things.
Big time triggered.
So I've like, that's been, my thing. So I'm like, you can't do that. You're going to give him, eating disorders in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that. And he's like, oh, it's not, he tries to think about it. I try to think about it. And it's like, he's like, really, really, that's so far away from now. Why do I have to think about it now? Those are the kinds of things that I feel like, yep.
Yes.
That run into my mind.
No, that 5 years perspective is a good one. I think it's a great perspective. And I have one question for you, but let's go ahead and read the comment from Omar Clark. What's up, Omar? And he said, just jumped in the last 2 to 3 minutes and really good content. I experienced similarly in my last relationship, this expectation of perfect change. And maybe I'll ask you the question, Omar, if you're still on, which is the expectation on the other side. Like they were expecting perfect change from you, or you were expecting it from them, and you learned that maybe that's not as valuable. Omar also said right here, gotta accept that we're works in progress. Yes, sir. It's weird trying to be like Jesus without having the patience, understanding that Jesus has for us, along with his expectations. Get them.
Yep.
Yeah, no, so here's a question. So let's take it back to a real life scenario.
Okay.
So you had a nice highlight in our softball game last week or the week before. Your husband was there. He somehow happened to miss your highlight. You were kind of ticked off, and you were effing this and effing that. And then I'm just going, I'm asking, naturally, the narcissist inside of me wants to help, wants to help resolve, wants to help, maybe bring some resolution, or maybe I can provide some humor or say something funny, or just maybe say easy, tranquila, right? So I'm curious your perspective naturally on this side of it. One, it's a personal situation. Mm-hmm. He happened to miss your highlight.
This is the second time, by the way. Second time that's happened.
So the Christian in me would go, love keeps no record of wrongs. 1 Corinthians 13. Now, but is there on this side of it where you think would be something for Big Brother to say or do in that situation, or no, like there's not really anything that would help de-escalate? Because that situation, and I appreciate you and I having the relationship to be able to have conversation about this and not
not like mind your business.
Right.
Quit talking about me.
Right. So probably anybody having their spouse come at them like you were coming at him was the phrase probably is emasculating. Mm-hmm. And I suppose I wouldn't know the phrase on the opposite side. Maybe it'd be just condescending if the man was coming at the woman like that. Maybe just disrespectful. Anyway, what's your perspective on that, and how I guess one part of the question is there something you would recommend me do maybe when you're in this low key rage? You're not like getting physically violent, but there's absolutely animosity.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. You could say, Amy, he could not be here at all.
You'd be like, well, then go.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because that does seem, back to Viviana's litmus test of, does this matter in 5 years? Like, does it matter 5 years from now? Does it matter that he missed one highlight that of yours?
Yeah. But this is why I say, like, I overthink things.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, especially in that moment, it makes me upset because it wasn't necessarily the fact that he missed exactly what I was doing. It was because he was on his phone. And, like, at home, the same thing happens. Kalel will do something, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, look at Kalel. And then he's like, okay, give me. And then he puts it down, and then I'm like, you missed it. Like, he stopped doing it, So then it's like, I'm thinking, okay, if he does it to me, how do I know in 5-10 years when Kalel's playing t-ball or when he's doing something, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be cheering him on and I'm going to be like, look, did you see him? He just hit the ball. And then he's going to be like, oh, I was just looking at my phone, you know? And it's like, I feel like I get overly upset and I get overly angry because I want him to feel like, oh, maybe I should just stop what I'm doing and pay attention to what, somebody that I care about is doing. I think that's where, like, I overdo it and I over exaggerate because I really, really want him to understand that, like, those problems I think are going to continue into other parts of our lives,
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want Kalel to feel like that. I don't want Kalel to, and especially, with our mom, as many like phone calls as she takes, a lot of times, we go out to eat with her or we're doing stuff and I think obviously like that's something internal, like me, myself, like I internally get upset about that. I internally like already have like resentment towards people being on their phone when they're trying to spend quality time with their family. So it's like those kinds of things get me emotional.
Yeah.
So it's like, the fact that like mom has done that to me in the past, and then for my husband to be doing that to me, like, and then I'm super scared that he's going to do that to my son.
How do you feel right now? I feel like you're
that's what I'm saying. Like it gets me emotional.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
Here's my. Okay, so you're familiar with Serenity Prayer stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to remind anybody who doesn't, a lot of times I feel like, hey, this is common knowledge, everybody knows this, but
Yeah.
I think it's relevant. So like the idea of Serenity Prayer is, hey, grant me the courage to change that which I can change, and then grant me the serenity to understand the things that I cannot change, and then the wisdom to know the difference. Hey, which things are which? So I asked myself, so in a situation like I think that you're in, like sometimes I think the short term is if I yell, scream, and cuss, I'll get my way. But getting back to my perspective of like, hey, what happens when I do that? Well, I think what happens is it's you're just adding a little bit more poison to the well of the relationship, and also kind of understanding the nature of, I think, life and the disappointment. What you're saying is real. Again, I want to validate what you're saying. Like, you had an expectation, right? You built this expectation of, hey, if I do really good on the game, I really want my husband to see me do really good.
Yeah.
And you had this expectation built in. If you have this situation with your son, he has these milestone moments. The expectation of you want your husband to see it, witness it, experience it together, and then also the expectation with mom as far as how much of her attention she gives you when you're again out together with the meal. So what I find myself doing is skipping. Okay, how do I back to the Serenity Prayer? Is this my courage is needed to change them? Again, now once we've been, I think, spelling out some of that language, when I go, I'm gonna change her or I'm gonna change him so that he's never on the phone at the wrong time, right? And then I think once we start saying those things out loud, we go, oh, okay, yeah, like there's not really. Is that real?
Yeah.
Is that real to perfectly time it so somebody's always available whenever I need them? Now, you could have a preference. We're all allowed to have preferences, but I think the situation that comes up is if you build in the expectation that the people in my life need to give me the attention when I want the attention, and if they don't, then I'm going to have resentment. I think that equation might be setting you up for extra resentment because, you took some of it out on them, but part of it is it seems to be robbing you of some of the peace that you have.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on any of that?
Yeah. Makes sense. No regrets. I'm just kidding.
I'm staying in the harsh winter, and you can't get me out of here. Yeah, no, I think.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
But it's like, yeah, like I can see that. And like I said, I think that sometimes it's not constructive. Like, I think sometimes I'm not explaining myself well either. Like I'm not explaining, how I'm thinking about things. I'm not trying to get to a vulnerable spot and say like, it hurts my feelings when you do that. Or like, it reminds me of my mom when you do that. I'm not saying those things. I'm just automatically getting angry and starting to yell.
Yeah.
So it's like, I internally have to understand, like, take a deep breath. you know, and like sit him down and like talk to him, you know, and actually have constructive conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we start to actually get to a better place. Because, you know, I don't think, you know, Jeremy's not opposed to hearing me out. You know, like he'll hear me out. He will sit down and we will talk about things. But sometimes it's hard to even just get to that place, especially when I'm in a heightened emotional state.
No,
you know?
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, no, I think then if you're familiar, I forget if we discussed on the pod or not. There's the framework in cognitive behavioral therapy. ABC? No. Okay, cool. So it's a cool framework if you're ever journaling and thinking about, hey, like I'm in this space. So then A stands for activate an event. So in this context, it might be Jeremy missed the highlight or mom took a phone call, right? And then which activating events happen to all of us. Okay, dad's death or dad's suicide or girl broke up with somebody or somebody went through a divorce. So you have all of these activating events that happen all around us.
Yeah.
Some horrible things. You know, somebody goes to war, their leg gets blown off. Like somebody's sister's killed. Like all of these things happen to all of us. So the activating events happen to all of us, A. B is the beliefs that are derived from those activating events. So example is, you spelled it out earlier, the belief of, oh, Jeremy missed his highlight. The belief of he's going to miss every single highlight of Klaus' entire life. And he's never, ever going to be president. He's never going to see anything. Okay, now, is that real? No, that's not real. Okay, well then what is real? No, the fact is he's going to see some things. He's going to miss some things, like all parents do. We see some things and we miss some things. Then, so you take the same framework. So the C stands for the consequence of holding on to the belief. So then, if the A is activating and missing the highlight, B is the belief that comes from it. If it's B is he's gonna miss everything, then it's like a constant state of disappointment. Or you're gonna miss all of the life, and I'm gonna be down, and I'm gonna be upset, I'm gonna be disappointed, and so you're gonna have that C, the consequence of holding on to that belief.
Yeah.
So then that's just the framework you probably for anything. So back to mom. A, activating event, takes a phone call during our lunch. B, she doesn't love me. Actually, then we go, is that the right belief that comes from that event? Then you begin to dispute, which is kind of that letter D, where you dispute the toxic beliefs that do not align with reality. Her taking a phone call during lunch, is that actual proof she doesn't love you? Actually, you have a bunch of other data that proves, okay, she paid for this meal, she took me out, she did all of these things. So you have all of this data that proves she does love you, she does prioritize you. So all of that to say is, it's a really, I find a pragmatic, helpful frame to think through and kind of help you navigate some of these triggers that might come up. Because even with you right now, and you tell me what happened with you internally, is there was maybe there was a disappointment into anger when it comes to Jeremy missing the highlight, but then all of a sudden there was this sadness and this depth of pain that came when you thought about mom.
Yeah.
So was that accurate, or how did that happen internally for you? As far as, because like I saw you, I was looking at you, and then I'm like, okay, her eyes are kind of welling up, and so your emotional state, you know, I saw it shift.
Yeah.
So what was it like internally?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think things make me angry, and then I get emotional, and especially like I get sad.
Yeah.
But I like to be sad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and people talk about on the professionals on the counseling and therapy side, they talk about this idea of anger being a secondary emotion. Like typically we have disappointment first, or we have sadness first, or we have something first becomes before the anger. So I find myself going, oh, I'm angry. Oh wait, what came first? And then I look at, so many times for me it's this disappointment. I had an expectation of this. It happened this way. My anger came out over here, and just to be mindful of those things.
Yep. Speaking of softball, we have a game today. Yeah.
Okay, good. Do you want to read anything from that chapter, or do you want to move on to the next one?
If you want to, we can.
I feel like we hit some good we mined some good gold in there. You know, we done drilled in there and got some good stuff. All right. So then we'll go to the next one. You go to pick one of mine.
Let's see. Your first one that you picked was... I have to sneeze. Being attracted to someone else doesn't diminish the quality of your marriage. Acting on that attraction does.
You want to read? Like, why don't you go and read some of what they had to say on that topic?
All right, let's see.
Unless you have some immediate thoughts about it.
No immediate thoughts. Okay. So, again, being attracted to someone else doesn't diminish the quality of your marriage. Acting on that action does. Linda, I'm a recovering jealous wife. In the early days of our marriage, I was horribly insecure. One time when I saw Charlie dancing at a party with a tall, slender, attractive blonde, I slipped.
That's actually the wrong key. I should have went like.
I slipped into a bad case of resentment. On the drive home, I exploded. There was a terrible sense, and we almost got into an accident. After the dust settled, we were able to discuss.
In my head, they're like driving home, and then she's like pulling on the wheel.
She's like, I'm about to jump out of this car right now. He's holding her by her shirt.
These are psychotherapists, by the way. So both of these are very mature adults. And anyway, keep going.
Okay. After the dust settled, we were able to discuss his flirtatious and very reactivity of it. Oh, and my reactivity of it. Over the years, there have been other episodes like this one, and I gradually came to trust that Charlie's flirting is harmless, nothing that would put our relationship at risk. No longer possessed by panic at these times, I now find myself merely observant.
Is it at the end of the chapter?
No. Let me see how long this chapter is. Oh, it's just one page. Okay. It has, however, taken time and conversation and adjustments on both our parts to get to this point. I know that neither of us would knowingly do anything to jeopardize our marriage or hurt the other. Our boundaries are clear, at ease in this certainty. I can rejoice in the aliveness of the human spirit, which is what led us both to feel the spark of attraction to others from time to time. It doesn't mean that there's anything missing or wrong with our marriage just because we occasionally experience an attraction, sometimes even an intense one, to another person. Feelings in the body, thoughts tickling the mind, fantasies in the imagination are just part of the passing show. They come, and if we don't feed them, they go. They're a testimonial that our passion is alive and well. The end of the chapter.
There is a part that you had read. Did you? Oh, maybe I stopped you from commenting because you wanted to comment. Is that what you stopped because you wanted to comment, or because there's more? There's another page. Is that what?
No, no, there wasn't another page. I stopped because I was the edge of the paragraph.
Oh, okay, got it.
I wasn't sure how much of it we were gonna read, so.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So, I don't know.
Me too.
Because okay, look, I'm not necessarily like. Okay, I would say I want to say I'm not a jealous person, but Jeremy hates everybody. You know, like so he's like never around people. He will avoid people. He avoids people like the plague, you know, like. So I'm not jealous because I don't think Jeremy ever likes being near anyone, not women, not men, no one. So let's say I saw Jeremy talking to a woman, I think that would irk me because you never talk to anyone. Why are you talking? Why are you talking to her?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, maybe that makes me like.
It is an interesting thing when we're maybe protected or not exposed to different stimuli. Is maybe what I'll call it. Example, again in the Christian journey. You know, there's I remember going through a phase, especially because in the Christian way, like you're swearing off sex until marriage. You know, you're even being really mindful if we're kissing, or we not even kissing at all, or we full frontal hugging like a cocoon, or we're side hug Christian type, and all of these things that you're kind of in the middle of. So the idea then, I remember when I went from like, you know, not having a girlfriend, so you're not really doing anything with anyone. Then I'm holding a hand, and all of a sudden there's like all of these thoughts, because all of a sudden this hand, like again, it's something so simple, but it's like, oh wow, like all of these thoughts are happening, and there's an excitement and all of this, but it's like it's such a small thing, like a hand. So to me, as I'm comparing it to you, is you have somebody who hates everyone, who gives you, I mean, probably the far extreme of you never have a reason to be jealous at all, ever. And then all of a sudden, you know, somebody smiles at him or something, and then it's like, triggered.
Yeah. So I think that's where I come into an issue there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like let's say Jeremy never talks to anybody ever. Jeremy never wants to get out and do anything. All of a sudden we're at, you know, Erin gets married, it gets her wedding. We're there and he's dancing out there with someone else. There's going to be a lot more than heartache on the dance floor.
I'll be like, tranquila. So I think something about even this book, it's fascinating to hear even this perspective. And maybe we could go back to the one section. Maybe it's one paragraph before the end of it. I know Viviana said something there as well. You want to read her comment?
Yes. She said, it's one thing to talk to someone, but flirting, I disagree. I'm not okay with my spouse going about the world flirting with attractive girls.
Right. And then that's the point I was going to get to. I was like, wait, what did this psychotherapist say on
163 was the
163.
page.
I'm all over here lost. 160. Let me go over there. Okay, right. I think she was a little more liberal in her growing to a position. I was like, wait, what? I think that's where you had stopped, because maybe you had a comment to give. Okay, where is it? Okay. Over the years, there have been other episodes like this one. Sounds kind of toxic, but let's keep reading. It says, and I gradually came to trust that Charlie's flirting is harmless.
I'm just kidding. How long have they been married?
That would put our relationship at risk. No longer possessed by panic at these times, I now find myself merely observant. Yeah, so I think it was interesting because it's almost like she was saying, I'm not going to ask him to stop flirting. I'm just going to
watch.
So I think I'm with you, Viviana, with the idea of what she seems to be tolerating. But okay, let's maybe unpack flirting. Okay, when does somebody cross into that avenue of, hey, no, I'm being cordial. I'm within the realm of being cordial, and then when somebody crosses into actually flirting, what's your perspective? I know you just express he can't do anything because he never does anything, so he can't do anything ever.
Yeah, to me. Okay. It crosses that line for me. Okay, like let me give it, for example, my brother who is single. When does it go from he's talking to one of my friends, just chilling friends, and then he's flirting with her, right? So let me put it that way, all right? My single brother has gone out with a few of my friends. Just kidding.
I don't know what to address, but keep going.
Anyways, so let's see. Like, I think that just talking like platonically, and then any kind of like compliments, I would assume.
Any compliments? Okay, so he says thank you for the change to the cashier. Okay.
No, like, oh, thanks, your nails are nice.
Okay, so physical compliments.
Physical compliments, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then no compliments on the physical, which is nails, smile. Oh, you have a really nice smile. Or, okay, what about observation without a compliment inside of it? Example, he has a coworker and she got a haircut. Oh, look, you got a haircut. Notice there wasn't a compliment, but it was an observation. Does that count?
I don't think that counts. Not for my brother. For Jeremy, yes. Because again, Jeremy doesn't say stuff like that. He would say not that. He if let's say one of our family members got a haircut, he would be like, if he really had to say something, he would in private personally tell me on the side, did they get a haircut? You know,
yeah. Okay, so then the observation, which I think, again, having talked to women, and when men make observations about changes, there is some kind of an emotional connection. Oh, he noticed my before, he noticed my after. I think there's something that does happen in that space as well.
I think especially if somebody's like observant, maybe not.
Yes. Let's read Omar's comment. Omar said, gotta balance that flirting in marriage, probably never okay. But conversations, etc., gotta expect each other to grow while considering each other's weaknesses. Did your wife's father flirt and leave her fatherless? That doesn't translate into her husband, but it's baggage with real emotional implications. Gotta weigh that. And other countless variables. Marriage hard.
Marriage level hard.
Right. And then so break it down to the difference of flirtation inside of a dating. So would the dating relationship flirtation be different than marriage? I feel like you would be the same. Like if somebody who's just your boyfriend, then you would have the same standards of flirtation. No?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, let me think about me. Naturally, arm touching. Hey, like.
Okay, actually, you know what? I don't. It also really just depends on the person. Like I said, in the past, like I said earlier, like if somebody has, especially like, okay, I used to be a cheerleader. Men worked at the cheer gyms. So it's like what different people consider flirting, and people would date there at the cheer gym, and then you as a flyer, going up in the air, you have this person who's catching you and throwing you up in the air, and they have a girlfriend, or different things.
So they're like touching legs, hips,
body,
butts.
up the chest, everywhere, so it's like, okay, is that like a professional setting kind of thing? Because then it's like they're dating each other also. Is that how they met, So it's like it really just depends on the person. Like for most people, yeah, you don't consider it like flirting or being like that, but then some people are not comfortable with it. I think it really just depends on.
So if Jeremy was a male cheerleader and no, just kidding.
Well,
so back to maybe where I'd be at.
Yeah.
Okay, so arm touching, I used to joke around and say, what does it take for a man to think that a woman likes him, right? Okay, and it's an interesting, I think, conversation to think about. What does it take? And then so if we went from like the most extreme, okay, she's touching his arm and smiling and complimenting him, and then I actually asked the question one time. I said, what's the best compliment you could receive from a woman? And then somebody said in a comment, they said, oh, I love the way you smell. I love your cologne. Like, what is it? I would love I would love to buy it for my husband so he could smell like you too. Like that's like that's like again over the line, right?
Yeah.
Or things that have been said to me along the way, which is, oh, like, do you have a brother? Or like, do you have like this idea of who you are is so incredible? Like, do you have somebody else that's like you? And so anyway, all that I say is there's maybe the more extremes into the more sensitives, which would be, what did I have there? Okay, so yeah, arm touching, compliments about your scent, compliments about your muscles, a woman to a man.
Yeah.
The compliment, okay, this is back to the conversation we had about what's flirtation and what's harassment, which is
Yeah.
which is if a man to a woman says, it's one thing to say I like your shirt, but the other one, I think the modification is I like the way this shirt fits you or looks on you.
Yeah.
And then now it's about your body and your shape.
Yeah.
You know, so then those are maybe again more clear. Now, once you get maybe pull it back, I know again yours is really yours is a really clear boundary in a line, where mine would be okay. So when you're being friendly, so that friendliness and that interaction you have with people around you, so I'm asking what's flirtation. Okay, so then yeah, so I won't call another woman beautiful. Maybe if I'm at a woman's wedding.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, like so the number of times I probably called a woman beautiful outside of my family and wife in my 10 years of marriage, I think might have been like 3 times, and they were all at weddings. It was the bride, and I think even the idea it was interesting. Oh, I don't really use that word to describe anybody but my wife and family.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so the physical I think is a really clear indicator of flirtation.
Yeah.
The other things, though, like as far as your character,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're so good with the kids, or oh, you, your energy, like the energy you have, and it's I can really feel, the energy the whatever the energy, the vibes, these things like that. Again, so are those flirtation? I don't think so. But okay, I started one conversation. I didn't finish it, which was like, how little does it take for a man to think? Okay, is it physical touch? For sure, like easily, the man thinks she likes him. Is it nice words? For sure, she thinks he likes him. Is it smiling? For sure, the man thinks she likes him. Is it not smiling but looking at, and then for sure the man thinks she likes him? Is it frowning and making a mean face but she's pretty? For sure the man thinks she likes him. So like all of these things, like it's so easy for a man in the male ego to go, oh yeah, she definitely she likes me, or she's
even like she's being mean to me,
right?
Because she likes me.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think if if I was dating somebody, again, if my wife and I were dating, we were dating, and then she was the kind of person that would do like questionable things that might be flirtatious, that would have been like deal breaker. I'm good.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go to your second?
Yep. Let's move
second
on.
expert marriage tip, which
17.
Which number 2, we might have kind of undercut their expertise by saying how much we disagreed with them. But I feel like these are good conversations regardless. Chapter 17?
Yeah.
All right, chapter 17.
Are they still married?
Tone of voice is so telling, says Viviana in the chats. Is this couple still married? I mean, we can look them up on Google. Y'all can look them up. It's Linda and Charlie Bloom.
After that last one, a little piece of me.
All right. This one is, it's never too late to repair damaged trust for flirting with other people. That's right. It's never too late to repair damaged trust. Any thoughts off the back, or do you want to go to the reading?
Ooh. Thoughts off the back. Is that true, really? Never is an absolute.
Now, repair the damaged. I suppose the book is about. In my head, I was wondering, where are they going with this? Are they going with, like, there was infidelity, and then they divorced, and then they began to trust each other because there's kids, so they trust each other with kids and family stuff. but not trust each other in the relationship again. Like, so I'm curious, like where she's going with, or where they, him and her are going with the perspective of repairing the damaged trust. But your perspective was what?
I don't know.
You think it can't be too late to repair damaged trust?
Yeah. That's why I wanted to talk about it, Derek. I was very much curious. But yeah.
Shall we go to the reading?
Yep, let's do it.
Page 40. This is in this activity of going through chapter titles is one of my nerdy things I love to do with books and kind of have perspectives in there. All right, this is a little bit less than 2 pages. Here we go. There's no statute of limitations regarding hurt feelings or wounded trust. The bad news is that the pain of unfinished business can continue for years. The good news is that it's never too late to heal old wounds, even if they happened long ago. Rose was 69 and Harry was 78 when he suffered a serious heart attack. For nearly 2 years, Rose devoted herself to Harry's recovery. They both agreed that her devoted care literally saved his life. However, in the process of being Harry's caretaker, Rose had overextended herself and was suffering from compassion fatigue. Shortly after Harry's recovery, Rose fell into ill health and became depressed. She and Harry had been partners in a successful business, and now they were facing the possibility of losing it due to their deteriorating health. Not yet ready to transition into retirement, they both kept struggling to save the business, despite Rose's unhappiness, exhaustion, and growing resentment. Harry welcomed the opportunity to reciprocate Rose's devotion, and he threw himself into caring for her as his strength slowly returned. Things, however, did not go according to plan. Rose didn't trust the depth of Harry's feelings for her. She feared that if she really needed him, he wouldn't be there for her. As a result, Harry often felt that in Rose's eyes, he couldn't do anything right, and he was frustrated that his efforts didn't succeed in making her happy. Rose acknowledged that they had never created a foundation of deep intimacy in their marriage. At this point, I didn't even know if they were married. I was kind of confused about what was happening. All right. And she feared it was too late. Together, they decided to seek couple counseling. Harry learned to be more responsive to Rose and more patient with himself rather than argue with her, which had fueled a power struggle. He committed himself to demonstrating his love and gratitude regardless of how it might be received. As a way of showing his love, Harry came every week to either couple or individual therapy sessions. He also shopped, cooked, and told Rose that he loved her each day. He searched for prospective buyers for their business, took her to Hawaii, listened patiently to her distress, and became less reactive to her outbursts and criticisms. He even cooked chicken soup for the first time in his life. Harry and Rose had not had an active sex life for 6 years. His snoring and tossing and turning had led them to sleep in separate rooms. They agreed to try a ritual of lying down beside each other in bed to be close before going to their separate rooms. Gradually, a feeling of kindness and gentleness came back into their marriage. Over the months, their intimacy grew. Rose eventually accepted Harry's efforts and softened into her love for him. The months of focused attention to their relationship paid off with a sweetness and trust greater than anything they had previously known. In their sunset years, they developed the love they had always longed for.
Immediate thoughts right now. I feel like, do you think that when people go to therapy or when they go to like talk to people, you know, like a counselor or, you know, even like a pastor, you know, when they go to talk to someone, do you think that they go in there with an idea already on what's going to happen? You know, like underneath, the therapist or the counselor kind of can tell what's going to happen with the marriage or with the person or what they want to accomplish, and they just guide them there? Or do you think it's genuinely like building new tools and stuff like that. You know, building new ideas or changing someone's mind.
Well, yeah, there's it's always funny when it's life is funny and principles are funny when I wrote about them or like about topics. And I haven't wrote about, I mean, I wrote a marriage book, but the idea, what would be, it's funny because I think what good therapists do is they're assessing what I've described in a couple of my books as assessing the well. So the idea is if somebody can come up with their own solutions and you kind of help them to ask questions and help them resolve the issues by themselves, like in other words, like a therapist who's trying to understand what tools this person even has to use for resolving conflict, for showing up in their marriage. And then so you're able to ask questions about what tools they have. And then if you understand they don't have the tools, okay, they need the tools. Then so what I described it as like, okay, I on the coaching side, I would go 90% of all issues that somebody has with personal growth and development and achievement, my perspective, especially people that I worked with, they can solve on their own. In other words, they already have the information. It's about implementation. Then you have like 5% that they don't have the tools yet, but then I can lead them to a place to get the tools. And then maybe 5%, another area is maybe I have the tools and I can give them the tools that I have.
Yeah.
So all of that to say is I think a therapist will aim to navigate and figure out what does this couple need. Do they just need somewhere to listen? Are they in a debate and an argument, and the therapist can pinpoint, okay, I need to share how this spouse's opinion is valid and see if two people asserting the validity of the perspective helps this person or not. And now, will she feel ganged up on? Will she feel like, oh no, it is valid because more than just my spouse this is an objective third party. So anyway, all I have to say is there's all these things going on there. What are your thoughts about it?
My thoughts? Especially like the trust being broken thing. I don't know if their age mattered in this chapter. Because I feel like I don't know. It's hard to say that like any amount of trust can automatically be rebuilt when it wasn't something like infidelity, you know, or
which I think they have another chapter on that topic, but go ahead.
Or like you know, abuse or, you know, different things like that.
Right. Like when I was reading the story, I thought there was this, like she was going to be caring for him, and then she was going to discover clues about his infidelity, and they were about to have a whole situation. But then it was like, like it seemed kind of like minor, you know,
anticlimactic.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, they were just.
You were looking for the Reddit twist,
Yeah.
And it was
Yes,
like
I was.
pretty mild and pretty PG. I mean, I mentioned like intimacy at one point, but it's like anyway, but.
Yeah.
So, but to the other part of your question, as far as like what do pastors do? So naturally, you know, we've been in settings where we've received support and some of that counseling and help. And I think one of the things that the great ones do, it is seemingly universal, is one, they normalize, which, you know, there's a Bible verse that says, you know, no temptation has seized you except what is common. So that's the idea, is like you never want people to feel weird about whatever they're tempted with or whatever problem they're having.
Yeah.
And especially if you've been in many counseling situations, you're able to go, oh yeah, couples struggle with this all the time.
Yeah.
Because I've, you know, been with a bunch of couples and these couples have said these things. This couple said this couple said this. Now people don't speak about it publicly always, so you don't know how common it is.
Yeah.
But people who are in those settings, even when I talk to my therapist and stuff, like when I tell him about something like a dark problem that happened in one of my friends or family members' life, and I'm processing, he's like, oh yeah, this is. I heard 5 situations like that yesterday, you know. So he's like,
Yeah.
So you normalize things. So that's one common practice. But then you try to be what at least what I've seen done effectively is you try to, if somebody, the more stubborn they are, the almost the more pushback I've seen that person get. So I think I learned early on from a marriage counseling situation, like try to go in not being stubborn.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll get more pushback if I'm stubborn. So more so go, hey, I think this, but hey, Is there other ways to think
Yeah.
about this? So again, there's other proverbs to speak about. There's a way that seems right to a person, but in the end it leads to death. Or it says the way of a fool seems right to him, but the wise listen to advice. So I think my mindset going into counseling situations, some of it was ego. Like I don't want to go into this thing and like get punked. Like
Yeah.
and then like, but if I stay humble, going, hey, I thought this, I did this. I'm not saying, I don't know if it was the right thing. It was just a thing that I did.
Yeah.
What's the perspective? And then they weigh in. But then once one of us got to a point where like, no, like they're wrong, like then that's when I think that counseling really focused on that person. Like all of
Yeah.
a sudden, it's very much the one finger pointing there and 3 or whatever, 4 fingers pointing back
Yeah.
was the vibe in my experience in those counseling situations.
Yeah. Makes sense. I definitely think, especially if trust has been broken, it would be important to get outside objective help, because I think that a lot of the times avoidance, like especially like if somebody doesn't trust you or you don't trust somebody else, like that feeling, I don't think it's a good feeling, like to feel like untrustworthy.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling. So instead of talking about it, people try to avoid it. So I think getting help in those kinds of situations can help push forward a relationship if that's something that really needs, something that as a couple you really want to make work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep.
Good. Next one.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Derek's.
This is one I picked.
Yes, it is. So, here it is. The sparkle of a new relationship is always temporary. Ta-da! Yeah. Okay. 2, 3. Any initial thoughts?
I've heard this idea that when you're in marriage, like the idea that you agreed to get married to this person, they probably have qualities that you like probably like there's something about them, the way they carry themselves, the way they were. And some people can change for the worse for sure. But the idea is that there's something you really liked about them. You wanted to spend time with them. You wanted to build a life with them. So that's why you got married to them. So then I've heard this idea, like this 80-20 principle, like your spouse has 80% of what you want and 20% of what you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes when you're like interfacing with other people, let's say me, if I see other women or I'm interacting with different women in different social settings, and then there's a tendency to see what I don't have in my marriage. Like, so I see the 80% I do have, but there's a 20% that's missing. And then I go, oh, like this person has the 20% that I'm missing over here. So then there's a sparkle that they have what I don't. And maybe if I pursued that, then everything would be good. But then it's also back to this idea of that person also only has 80%. In other words, this idea that we only possibly can get 80% of what we want from another person. And there will always be that 20% gap of what we don't want, maybe don't like in a person. Again, those are general concepts, but I think it's sobering to remember before somebody would ever like give up on their marriage, you give up a marriage for another relationship. Okay, like, is there a guarantee you will not have similar problems, maybe bigger problems than you're having right now? And if there's not, then does it make sense to give up on the relationship?
Yeah. Ooh, even the thought of that, like, also, I think we've had the conversation, the internal wanting to even just be in a relationship, like the internal desire to be in a relationship, even if you're single. That's something that, Jeremy's had questions about, asked me like, well, why do women even want to get married?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're by yourself, and I think that was another thing that was in the, another chapter in the book. It was like your happiness is important to also make sure you have a happy marriage. So it's like, internally, if you're by yourself, can you be happy? Can you be satisfied? Just like hanging around with people and being okay, and then, being with somebody else. Yes, you see the 20% in somebody else, but it's like, even if you focus in on your marriage and you decide, okay, this is not what I want to do, how many times do people divorce and then stay alone? That's what I'm like, in my head, that's where my thoughts are going. Can you just divorce and stay alone? Because you're not getting the 80% even out of what, out of your spouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
then not be with anybody else because you rather have zero.
let me do the obnoxious thing and go, in my marriage book, I wrote about this concept, which was this idea of the W chapter in my ABCs of Marriage book was win with yourself first. And this just is a very basic principle. I totally got it from somebody else, which is what you're saying about like contentment. Can I be content with myself? Can I be confident in and of myself? Can I do all of these things by myself so that there's not so much pressure for my spouse to complete me or make me whole and make me whatever? But there is that piece of it's not far-fetched to think that somebody can feel so miserable in their marriage and they go, man, I'd be happy if I was by myself.
Yeah.
And I think especially men who've gone through divorces, the interactions I've had with them is especially fascinating. For example, and then they'll use phrases when other men are getting married around them. They'll use phrases, like you used to talk about you got engaged, or another person got engaged, and then this person is going through a divorce, and this person goes, oh yeah, like I sent you flowers for your funeral, or oh, ball and chain, or like oh I'm sorry that happened to you, and like dap you up, like, and very much I think even mocking the experience of it because they had it so bad in their eyes. They're like, man, this is so much better to not be married.
Yeah. I've seen that too. Like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sending flowers for your funeral thing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I haven't had as many women interface. I find that's such a like a technology type word. Like interact with me and have that same disdain for marriage. Even divorced women, compared to how it is for divorced men who have a disdain for marriage.
I think it's mainly because men always feel like they get
shafted.
Yeah, in the divorce. That men feel like, they have it way harder. Which, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't. I can't speak on it because I'm a woman who's never been divorced, and even if I had been divorced, I'm still a woman. I can't speak on like how a man feels about that. But I do know that there's lots of posts and stuff like that saying that divorce is always in favor of women. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen like lawyers, certain viral lawyers who hop on and talk about that. Like, it's just not an equal ground. Again, I don't know about it. I don't know the facts, but when lawyers are saying, "Hey, I'm a family attorney, and I see this over and over again," then that's significant.
Yes. I used to work for a divorce attorney.
I think I knew, I forgot, and then you reminded me, and it refreshed my memory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What'd you do?
Sometimes I would draw documents, but for the most part, I just did his books.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Did we read any of this chapter yet, or no?
Nope, we didn't.
All right. Let's see what we got.
It's 2.5 pages. Oh, it's right here.
Is it 2.5 full pages? Oh, see, the first page is a half. So really, it's less than 2.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what's the title?
Again, the title? Yeah. The sparkle of a new relationship is always temporary. Josh and Ginger were married for 11 years with 2 children, aged 9 and 7. Josh generally played the role of the sacrificing martyr and lived in smoldering resentment. He felt obligated to fulfill burdensome responsibilities, and he denied himself most of the experiences that had formerly brought him pleasure. He secretly blamed Ginger for his unhappiness, and she couldn't help but feel his cold, rejecting judgment of her. Ginger, also caught up in her responsibilities as a mother, homemaker, and part-time worker outside the home, she didn't experience as strong a sense of sacrifice as Josh because she had continued to fulfill most of her personal needs throughout the marriage. A sense of deep malice prevailed their relationship, though neither of them was willing to openly acknowledge it. It seemed easier to just continue with business as usual. One day, the inevitable happened. Josh met Robin. A young, beautiful, and single woman. Unencumbered by adult responsibilities, the attraction was compelling. They began a secret relationship and continued it for nearly a year. Until Josh finally told Ginger that he was leaving the marriage. Ginger was outraged and devastated. Despite her feelings, however, she was unwilling to let go of their marriage without a fight. She tried to appeal to Josh, but his mind was made up. He wanted out. For the first time in years, he said he felt that his life was joyful and that he was something more than just a paycheck. He couldn't risk losing the person who had brought him back from the dead. He wouldn't sacrifice his life to a stagnant, unfulfilling marriage. When it became apparent to Ginger that Josh was closed to the idea of maintaining their marriage, she fell into a deep grief. With effort and help from a good counselor, she was able to accept the loss and begin establishing a new life for herself. In 10 months, the divorce was final. Shortly thereafter, Josh and Robin began experiencing difficulties that shattered their idyllic relationship. Living together proved to be very difficult from sustaining a secret connection. Some of the same issues and feelings of obligation that Josh experienced with Ginger began to show up in his new relationship. In this case, it was Robin who left and refused to consider. To Josh's eyes, she was no longer the delightful younger woman who had freed him from his life of drudgery. In fact, she was starting to look disturbingly like Ginger. This time it was Josh who was the rejected one. It happened very quickly. According to him, 1 minute we were living together, the next she was gone. In truth, none of these people had changed, but with changing circumstances, different parts of themselves began showing up. Josh experiencing some painful and powerful lessons over the 2-year period following his breakup from Robin. During much of that time, he was unwilling to involve himself with any woman. Gradually, he was able to recover from his wounds and forgive himself for his mistakes. Trusting myself again, he said, is going to take some time.
Woo.
Of course. Sadness. Back to what I was saying. Being happy by yourself. But, it's funny, like, I think about it. I prioritize, doing the things that I enjoy doing, like doing the podcast and doing softball, which I've talked about before. Like,
and you're not going to quit ever? Yay!
So, like, I've prioritized doing these things. And I think it's hard. Like, I was reading it, and then he's saying how, the book is talking about how Ginger, she maintained doing the things that she personally enjoyed. And I think it's kind of, I get myself into the same, like, I can feel like, things get overwhelming. It's hard to maintain doing things, but it's like these, few hours a week that I carve out myself, and I make sure that I prioritize those things, and I make sure to make it to those things, does keep me more at peace and happy. It's like those are the things that I have to do. And I think, I've tried to also establish those things like with me and Jeremy, where Jeremy also has time to do his own stuff. Because I did feel like for the longest time, I have been prioritizing this and doing this for myself. And I didn't see him, trying to do anything for himself, so then I was nervous that he was going to get resentful.
Mm.
You know, I think it's very important to do things that make you happy.
Yeah. Yes. 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 I mean, what's crazy was the 80-20 thing I was talking about was like exactly what happened to what's
Yeah.
his name?
Josh.
Josh. Josh. Yeah. He was like, "Oh, this girl over here has everything that I want." And then
Yeah.
he goes over there, and then some of the same things he was frustrated, irritated, and had a problem with his ex-wife, Robin. Robin? Was it Robin the new one or the old one?
Robin was the new one.
Ginger.
Ginger was the
Old one. Yeah. Same problems he had with Ginger. He was having with Robin, and Robin left him. Heartbreak.
Yep. Yeah, I think that it's, like I said, mainly important to focus on yourself, especially when you feel like you're not getting everything you need out of your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking for a new spark. Spark something in yourself
Mm.
internally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
I think the lens that I look at things is like giving voice. It sounds all dark. Giving voice to Satan or giving voice to the darkness and asking what that voice is saying in the middle of that temptation. Okay, so then what was Satan or darkness saying when he was married to Ginger? He's going like, dang, like, remember that girl robbing you, this man? Like, wouldn't it be so good if you were with her? Like, you'd be free. You wouldn't look at all this stress with Ginger. Like, Robin is so much better. She's attractive. She's free. She's everything that you want, bro. Like why you like YOLO? You only live one time. Are you really gonna be this miserable for all of your life? Like, don't stay here. Like when you begin to give it voice, like, oh wow, and then, but the reality of it. So let's say he listens to that voice. He goes and gets with Robin, but then it starts again, and it's like, oh. Now it's not. Now Satan's using two things. He's saying, "Okay, you thought you were gonna find something good over here? Like, you remember all those problems you had over here? You're also having them over here too." But then Satan's also working on Robin's side, saying, "Oh, like that guy that you just got with, he left his marriage. What makes you think he wouldn't leave you?" And man, all these seeds of doubt
Yeah.
and darkness that Satan, that darkness is planting on both sides of it. And
Yes.
and for me, it helps me to be shook into a reality when I give that satanic perspective words, and I go, oh, like I'm being played right here, like I'm being
Yeah.
tricked right here, I'm being deceived right here, and so to give that voice and then to be able to provide refutation, to refute that voice with better perspective, going maybe the better perspective if we're going back to, like, if we're talking about the devil on the right shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder, and giving Josh the voice when he's married to Ginger, it's like, yeah, it's tough right now, but it could get better,
Yeah.
and y'all can grow, and this is a harsh winter season, and even what you had said too, maybe there's some things you could do in your own life that'll add some of the fulfillment that you feel lacking inside the marriage.
Yeah.
But maybe there's other activities you could just be involved with to grow as a person, to move forward as a person, so that your entire being isn't just wrapped into this marriage. Although it's part of you, but it's not all of you. There's also different parts of you also to learn about and develop and grow in.
Yeah. I do think that absolute, like, forever, for all your one only life, you're going to be suffering, thinking like that, I think is hard, would be hard to hear, I think, especially like in a marriage, especially when you're going through hard times, it's easy to be like, is this what I'm going to be staring down every day for the rest of my life? Is this something that I'm going to be bothered with forever. And then, those things is, if you think about it like that, yeah, it can be horrible. You can,
Yeah.
it's like a mouse, stuck in like a hot area. They're going to want to try to dig out, find their way out. It's like you feel like claustrophobic almost. Like you're not going to be able to get away. Like things are going to be horrible. So I think not thinking so broad, especially because the idea of forever is such a big idea. The idea of all that is so hard to just even think about. I think to myself, I have to break it down like today, tomorrow, this year, instead of trying to think in such a long term. I think that sometimes working through problems is easier to do when you don't act like the whole rest of your life depends on this one decision that you're going to make.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And I think what's an interesting thing, which inside of when I was first like interested in therapy, I was like, okay, well, what is it supposed to do?
Mhm.
Like, and I remember looking up articles of like, what is healing? Like, what is it? Like, is it gonna make me not hurt anymore about anything from the past? No, that's not. Like, does that mean I can't cry about anything that's happened in the past? Like after therapy? No, that's not it. But one of the articles I thought was fascinating, and it described the inside of therapy, you're able to acknowledge thoughts, feelings, perspectives that maybe in other settings you wouldn't acknowledge. So, like the idea that if I'm talking to my sister and I'm talking about my marriage, how many filters will I put on from the reality? In other words, like
Yeah.
maybe I'm not going to talk bad about my wife to you. I won't talk
Yeah.
about does she do her and I both have bad behaviors? Sure. Like do we do everything perfect? No. So then we both have behaviors that we're not proud of.
Yeah.
But then does that mean whenever I'm talking to you, then I put a filter on and I filter out Angelita's bad behaviors as I have conversation with you because I want to protect her and all these other reasons. But like for the therapist, I'm like, okay, no, let me remove that filter and tell you actually what happened.
Yeah.
Tell the therapist actually what happened. And then so anyway, all of that to say, I think there's value in also back to that article. It said acknowledging, conversing, communicating real thoughts, real feelings, real perspectives about life that maybe you would have filtered from every other pocket of your life. And appropriately so. Like I protect my wife from my family by filtering her bad behaviors, and we all have conversations there. But then when you're filtering everywhere, hey, I'm filtering with you about her, and then they say you and I have a conversation after this about something personal and deep, then I filter the conversation I had with you, with her. So I'm filtering everywhere. And then it's like, oh, so I don't tell anybody what somebody tells me. So nobody really knows everything that I know.
Yeah.
And it's probably, in some ways inappropriate for people to know. So practicing that confidentiality. Then it's like, okay, well, actually in therapy is the one place I can go talk about what's really happened, what people really said to me and how it really affects me.
Yeah.
Because if I can't tell you what she's did, then it's also difficult for me to tell you how what she did has affected me and weighing on me.
Yeah.
And all of that. So processing all of that can be really helpful inside the therapy. Or even, again, podcasting right now. I know sometimes we're talking about things in generalities, but there's certain things that we could be saying that are very real to us personally.
Yeah.
And then there's value in, even in this space, acknowledging thoughts, feelings, perspectives that might normally go unacknowledged. But now that we're even in this book,
Yep.
can really help.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. So, I definitely can see where you're coming from. Yeah. I think that filters are definitely necessary. You're right about that. But, the therapy part, going, getting help. Like I said before, I think that that's necessary, especially if, trust is not there. You can establish that, I think, if you want that. If you're unsure, therapy might be able to help with anything like that as well.
Mm-hmm. I had a great conversation with one of the attorneys that I interviewed, and she was talking about the delineating between therapy as a safe place for you to go to talk about, again, acknowledge, share about thoughts, feelings, perspectives that you normally maybe wouldn't. But that's a safe place to go. But then there's other part of therapy that's giving you tools and figuring out what you need from the therapist so that you're also helping prepare them to help you.
Yeah.
Of what that is. So there's like solution-based therapy, and then there's
venting.
Right. That version.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, all right. Well, any perspective on this kind of a pod where we got into a book a little bit?
I liked it.
What if we did our pod marriage themed?
I had thought about that, but I don't want that to give bad juju to our marriages. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe you could create parables of other people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because the cool thing about them, and they're writing about, oh, well, Ginger and Robin. You know what I'm saying? It's not, Linda and what's his name?
Charlie.
Like, that flirting one, that was about them.
Yeah.
The other ones are about other things. And I also wonder, I guess we'll just trust that those things really did happen to them. They're really navigating it. But yeah, I think there's conversation, especially, we had some decent interaction with the chat too, with relationships is very universal and people think about it a lot.
Yeah, I think so as well.
What if we went through marriage books?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Then I'm going to read all these books, and then I'm going to be telling Jeremy, hey, you this and this and this. Then he's going to be like, trying to. Or maybe marriage will just get better and better and better and better.
Amen.
Until we get to heaven.
When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the comments in the chat. Let us know perspective on us doing more marriage content. I think that was it was really helpful. I know we didn't even get to some of the chapters we picked out. Yeah. Maybe we'll pick up on that next week or throw a curveball at you. But if nothing else, we'll plan next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Any last words?
None.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.